As we walk down these steps here at Calthorpe Community Garden, we are entering what we refer to as Black Mary's Pleasure Garden. This time last year, in the summer of 2025, there wasn't anything in this area besides the very large trees and some of the very large shrubbery towards the back. The whole area was basically wood chipped, and there was a lot of unwanted growth, a lot of stinger nettles, a lot of alkanet, and a lot of ground elder. We developed this garden last year in honour of a lady called Mary Wollaston, as we knew we was going to be having a statue erected in her honour, and the statue lives in this flower bed back here. Now briefly, because it's not the purpose of this video, the story of Mary Wollaston is that she was a free, self-employed black woman who lived on our land during the reign of King Charles I. She rented this land and she owned a well on this site, which she sold water from her well, was how she made her living. But she also became a local celebrity by all accounts for her powers as a medicinal healer. She even treated British soldiers on this site during the British Civil War. And Mary's legacy was nearly all but forgotten. However, a group of local women, particularly local black women, spent approximately 3 years raising the funds to commission this statue. And it was carved by a lady called Marcia Bennett Mell, who is the only black woman who's classically trained in stonemasonry. And Marcia, because we don't have a portrait of Mary, Marcia wanted the statue to be minimal, but for it to have clearly identifiably black features. So when people look at Mary, they know we're looking at a black woman. And we're very proud to have Mary here. We are honoured, in fact, as we believe we are one of only 3 public places which display art depicting a black woman. There is a statue of Mary Seacole, there is a mum depicted in the Windrush family, and now there is Mary Wollaston here at Calthorpe Community Garden. Out of the thousands of statues in London, only 3 are depicting black women. So we're really, really proud to do our part to bridge that gap. Of course, black women are still massively underrepresented in our public art, but Mary's here to stay now, and we're very, very honoured to have her here. So all of the planting in this area has been developed to honour Mary's legacy, and we've selected plants for their medicinal or their healing purposes. And I'll just talk you through some of the key players in the area. So for example, in the springtime, we had lots of spring flowering bulbs, particularly daffodils and alliums on this side of the garden. On this side of the garden, where the sun is there's slightly better light availability, we focus more on tulips, because as well there was actually already a lot of tulips already established in this bed, so we just added to that. The main contenders for summer, because this area gets the best sun, this area has a lot of plants like salvia, nepeta, agastache, echinacea, rudbeckia, persicaria. On the other side of the garden, where it's considerably shadier, the main plants for summer are plants like digitalis or foxgloves, which are just coming into flower now, and we've got hundreds of them scattered all through this bed. We've also got lots of aquilegia, which is a summer flowerer in this side of the bed. We've also got plants like thalictrums, which are these ones here that are just going to come into flower soon, not quite there yet. Moving into autumn, which is actually the trickiest part of the whole calendar year to provide pollen and nectar for pollinators. The main sources of pollen and nectar in this garden is going to be, for example, this plant here is called Aster fricatii. Asters are normally very, very sun-loving plants. However, of all the asters, this variety is the most shade tolerant. In this central bed here, I've got a lot of high-low telephiums, which are a type of sedum, but are a late summer through to the autumn flowering plant. In the winter time, there's 3 main shrubs which are going to provide our pollen and nectar in the area. The first one is this one here. At this time of the year, it looks pretty nondescript. However, it's called Edgeworthia chrysantha. And in the middle of winter, it will produce yellow flowers in kind of hanging clusters directly off of the wood while there's no leaves on the plant at all. And they are highly scented, or as most winter flowers are. We've also got about 6 or 7 daphnes planted throughout the area, and they are quite small. This is one here, but in the winter time when everything else has died off around it, this will also produce a highly fragrant tubular flower that's particularly attractive to moths, as they like the tubular shaped flower, and the scent is most active at night time. Finally, the last of the main winter flowers is going to be our Fatsia japonicas, which we have put in 4 in this back area here, like this plant here. Again, will actually flower right into the depth of winter, and is particularly sought after by solitary bees. We also have a lot of ivies in the area, which again are a winter flower. So for example, cascading over the edge of this bed here, and we've got several more dotted around the area. There's a different variegated one here, and there's more coming over the edge of this bed. So those will be our main contenders for pollen and nectar, but that is by no means an exhaustive list of the plants we are growing in this area. We also have a artificial waterfall in this area that starts up here, cascades over these rocks, and runs in a kind of zigzagging pattern all through this area of our sunken garden, underneath that bridge, and disappears under a hill around the other half of our sunken garden. And this area of moving water is highly beneficial, particularly to birds. You often see birds drinking and bathing in this water, as long as there's not too many people in the area, at several points during the day. In fact, I saw a pigeon in here just earlier today. So as it's providing drinking water, and it's providing a place where birds can come to bathe and to cool down, and it's a constant moving process. Even when we close up shop at the end of the day, this water is constantly moving. We've also looked at how we can create more areas for habitat here since we've developed Black Mary's garden. So for example, behind the statue back there, we have what we're affectionately referring to as our bug snugs, which are essentially teepees stacked with woody material and lots of seed heads sticking out of the top, which are going to provide food for birds, but also the stack itself is going to be habitat for all sorts of wildlife, vertebrates and invertebrates. And even just within one pile like that, there's probably several millions, if not into the billions, of single organisms we're living within that pile. And this will be a permanent structure in the garden now that will be always stay there. And as the material starts to rot down and the level kind of drops, we will just add more material into the top. We've also included maintenance paths behind the planted area. So for example, there's a path that starts, you have to climb up these rocks here, but that path will run all behind this planted area here, and then the pathway continues behind this planted area here. Now the idea is, as the planting in this area grows up, that pathway will become more and more obscure, because we don't actually intend for the public to go back there. It is a maintenance path. But we created a path out of wood chip. The wood chip will become a habitat for a much greater variety of wildlife than, say, just like perennial ryegrass that you would make a lawn out of. But as we walk on it, and as it rains, and as the material starts to break down underfoot, we scoop it up, and then we incorporate it into the flower bed. We then replace it with fresh wood chip, which is donated to us from local tree surgeons. So it becomes cyclical, and it becomes a part of the horticultural operations. So as well as providing benefit to wildlife in the short term while it's in the path, eventually that is all going to be fertility and plant food once it's incorporated into the bed as an organic mulch. Okay, this lower section here also has what we refer to as the upper terrace. Beyond this first planted area, there's this higher area, which you can see is actually at street level directly onto Gray's Inn Road, a very, very busy road. We recently, for International Women's Day, we planted out a native security hedge here using hundreds, probably in excess of 200 individual tree saplings. And so they are still very young at the moment, but you can see they are kind of dotted all through this area. As they grow up, they will form a thick hedge. They are all native plants, all flowering plants. Some are more thorny than others. Thornier plants have been prioritized closer to the fence line, whereas less thorny ones are closer to the actual pathway where people will be maintaining the garden. And that will provide security for the garden in time, but it will also provide a source of pollen and nectar for pollinators, and helping to preserve, thank you, native species, because as I say, all of those trees are all native to the UK. We are very, very proud of what we were able to achieve in this area in a very, very short space of time. We didn't really have any budget to develop this garden. The ladies who spearheaded the Black Mary project, who commissioned the statue, had a very, very modest budget of a couple of £100 to contribute towards the planting. And we thought initially we was only going to have enough to just do the initial planting around Mary herself. However, we took that very, very modest budget, and we made very, very wise, informed decisions on our planting selections, and made that money go as far as we possibly could. We also begged, borrowed and stealed plants from other parts of the garden. Anything that was shade tolerant, for example, was relocated into this area. So actually, where we thought we was only just going to have a small area planted around Mary, we was actually able to create all of this area, all of the middle terraced area through the back there, and these two in-ground planters here. All of this was achieved on very little money, but a lot of ingenuity and practicality and resourcefulness from myself and my small army of volunteers, so I could not do this without. So we're really, really proud of what we've achieved here, and it will only get better in time. A lot of our planting selections here were put in quite small because of the modest budget. However, in time they will grow. This will only improve year upon year, and hopefully within a short space of time, particularly once our security hedge starts to fill in, it will help this whole area to feel much more secluded and private and tranquil, and in keeping with the theme of healing. Thank you.